It's great to be here, and it's great to be here with you, Alex. For the background of the audience, I met Alex in 2019 when he was a member of YC's Winter 2019 batch, and he impressed me for the very first time I met him. Interestingly, he applied to YC with a different idea, and he pivoted to Deel, which has been his incredible success story since. So I wanted to maybe start there at the very beginning. First of all, thanks, Alex, and it's a pleasure to be on stage with you virtually. But let me ask you, so, what was the original idea that you applied to YC with, and what kind of made you decide that you wanted to pivot?
Yeah, first of all, thank you so much for taking the time and for doing this with me. It is so fun. Like it's weird. It's like hybrid, like in person, not in person. It's kind of funny. Yeah, big fan of YC, and yeah, the quick background is actually I applied. I don't know if you know that twice to YC before, and I didn't make it, but eventually didn't make it. And yes, me and Shro started Deal with a bit of a different idea, but the concept was quite similar. We wanted to help people get paid around the world and make sure that they get to work with great companies. We just had not realized the complexity around like Deal itself and what it would become. We also did think that crypto was the answer when we applied at YC to get people paid globally, and we eventually went back to our roots as well. So yeah, we started with more or less, I want to say something in the similar space, but very different from how to package it and how to sell it and how to bring it to market.
Mhm. And what did you see in the market, or what was the aha that was like, okay, we ought to focus on this company that became Deal? And were you tempted by anything else? Like, did you want to start a VR company or a crypto company or something?
Yeah, I think this is, I don't know if you've ever caught up with the other YC partners or maybe Aaron Harris, who's not YC anymore, but the running joke is we pivoted into what is Deal today 5 days before demo day. And for context, demo day is the big moment at YC where you present what you've been working on for the last 3 months. And throughout that time, I think we pivoted about 3 to 4 times into different products, always in the same niche. We wanted to help people get paid. Then we thought, oh, the reason they don't get paid is because they can't trust people. How about we help people collect the money back when they don't get paid by their clients? And then we had a lot of very funny stories around that. We always were around the same idea and the same concept, just never really packaged the right way. And then when we did that, eventually, we launched it at YC Demo Day with a couple of customers. We, benefited from the YC community at the time to get our first customers really rapidly and testing that market. And I think that aha moment for us really was when one of our batchmates, another company in the batch, started using Deal for the first time the way it is designed today. And it was completely organic, right? You just looked at the product and said, I can tie a contract to a payment. Usually those things are dissociated, like something's happening there. And I think at the time, we were escrowing the funds because it wasn't really the right way to do it, but we were keeping the funds on the contract and then releasing it over time. And he was just very excited about the idea of tying those two things together with someone in another part. And I remember going with that and going to see Aaron at the time and say, this guy used this product that way. Isn't it like interesting? He's like, yes, get back to work, sit down for like the rest of the day and just build it. And that's what actually ended up becoming Deal and what Deal is today.
That's fascinating. It's always amazing when your customers kind of lead you to the answer, and it's common. So, well, listen, you guys hit on a not just an isolated thing, a mega trend, as far as I'm concerned, in what the future of work is all about. And we see this at YC. We run a jobs platform, as you know, called Work at a Startup that helps people get jobs at YC companies. And nowadays, almost 90% of the YC startups that are looking for people on Work at a Startup express openness to hiring people in a borderless fashion. And that's really the mega trend. Obviously, big companies have hired people around the world for a long time, but startups are now starting to hire people in a borderless way. And I think this is like a huge sea change. And everyone thinks it's driven by COVID, but it's probably much more driven by just the scarcity of talent, the availability of talent everywhere, and the scarcity of talent in San Francisco and New York. So I was just wondering if you had any comment about that trend.
I mean, for sure, when we started there in 2019, we were our own customers, right? If you look at our initial team, me and Tro, I'm a French guy, she's from China. My first three engineers were in the Ukraine and in Israel, and our first content manager was in Serbia. So when we started the company at the very beginning, we were what we believe the future of work will be, which is the ability to leverage people wherever they are, right? You might have hybrid people in the same country, people in different countries. It's just about, at least to us, it's just about being able to work with the best talent, regardless of where they're from and regardless of um, the opportunities that they might have had before, right? And that's also what's very important for Deal. For maybe the quick background for people that don't know Deal, we help companies and we enable companies to hire anyone anywhere. So you want to hire that person in Japan, but you don't have the structure to do so. You can do that with Deal in an hour or in a couple of days, depending on the complexity of the hire. And that really should enable most companies, regardless of their stage, whether it's some of the smaller companies, some of the YC companies that are starting, especially since YC has gone very distributed and remote, all the way to some of the publicly traded companies. They're starting to figure out their global talent policy, right? The world is a big place. Why limit yourself to a 30-mile radius when it comes down to hiring?
Yeah, that's really well said. So for folks that aren't familiar with some of the complexities of hiring people abroad, like particularly, let's take the perspective of US founders. You guys serve founders everywhere and companies everywhere, but just from the point of view of a US founder looking to hire people abroad, talk about some of the complexities that they just need to understand.
Yeah, I think what I usually like to do is talk a bit about what used to be before it. So when you wanted to hire someone in another country, you kind of had three ways of doing so. The first one was, hire them, send them a contractor agreement, pay them, but you don't really know how they're set up. Are they doing it the right way? Is it the right structure? Like, for example, in France, there's 15 different ways to set up as an independent contractor, and that affects the right of ownership. That affects like so many characteristics of the contract. And people used to like send money via PayPal, close their eyes, and hope for the best. That used to be the flow. The second one is agencies. So you used to be able to work with local agencies that would charge you 20% and hire someone as an employee locally and give them, the equivalent of a 401k if there is one in the country and all of that. And the last one used to be the big, yeah, I think Palantir might have done that recently. Like, I'm going into Ireland, I'm opening an office, we're gonna hire 1,000+ people in Ireland, we're expanding there. So that's the way it used to be. The way it is today and the complications behind that is what we're trying to bring to the market is the idea that you don't have to overthink it. You want to hire someone in another country, you want to set them up as an independent contractor the right way or as a full-time employee the right way. We've got the full infrastructure from localized contract, dynamic contracts, all the way to I think 85 plus entities around the world so that we can hire them as full-time employees and give them the right experience. So yeah, I mean the complexity behind that is pretty big, right? Understanding local laws, executing on that, executing payroll in 90 countries, right? And all those things. But look, we live to make it really easy for you so that on the front end it's just clicking a couple of buttons and giving a good experience.
Terrific. So you guys have over 7,000 customers today. It's remarkable to see how you've grown customers all over the world, I think from 100, more than 100 countries. Can you talk a little bit, you've been working on this problem and building the product for a few years now. Talk about the Deal product today, like just like the various aspects of it and, kind of I think you've touched on it, but the problems it solves for your customers.
Yeah. You know, we've always been guided by our customers, right, from the moment we started, and we've always iterated on the product that way. So when we started Dill, we were focused on the independent contractor model because we saw so many gaps in it, and it was the one that we were using ourselves with our team around the world, trying to figure out the complexity behind it and how to do it right. And we kind of grew with that model into the point where a lot of our customers were talking to us and saying, "Look, that person should not be a contractor; they should be a full-time employee. How do I make that relationship happen?" Right? And that's when we started moving into, okay, yeah, that makes sense, right? That person is working full time for you. You want to give them the right benefits, the right structure. The full time employee model kind of makes sense. And that is where we got to today, right? The ability and the flexibility for you to say, I want to work with that contractor in that fashion and in that setup, or now I want to make that person a full time employee and give them a great experience. And the continuation of that has been, for us really special, right? Because it was the next step for us was, okay, now that we have thousands of employees around the world and we're paying thousands of people, but we know how to run payroll, right? And we know companies struggle with global payroll as well, right? Having your own entity and managing that. And it's a very natural expansion, right? Like when you hire a lot of people in the country for deal, eventually you want to open your own entity and manage everything there, right? So the next product we're working on and we already have great customers on is that idea of global payroll where we help you not only with the people that contractors, employees through us, but also with your own structures and your own, making sure that you're giving the right benefits, making sure you're administrating payroll the right way in the local countries, and that's kind of like the beauty of HR and of that very unconsolidated space where you can easily provide a lot of value to your customers and the customer. And we've been really focused on the customer journey, right? As a company grows, how can we make their journey better, their experience better, and really enable them to scale?
Terrific. So, we talked about this mega trend of borderless hiring from day one. Can you share some examples of customers of yours that have kind of done this really the right way and they've really capitalized on, hiring people everywhere using Deal?
Yeah. Well, I hope they're not gonna kill me for that, but I do like Captivate IQ. If you know that company, it's a great company. Raised that at a unicorn round recently, and Mark and Conway were thinking about hiring globally for quite a bit of time. Um, the first, their company was, I think, all based in San Francisco. And suddenly, they started looking at engineering talent and wanting to grow globally. And as they kind of scale, they realized, look, they can get amazing engineers that truly, truly care for the company, for the product, that are much more affordable than the Bay Area, where you're competing with, the Facebook and Apple and Google that honestly are overpaying and a lot of startups can afford. And quickly they realized, I mean, maybe let's get them on stage at some point. But my experience so far has been to see them go from, is it the right move for us, into, look, we just want the best talent and it makes sense and it's worked really great. And yeah, it's been fascinating seeing them scale globally. And we've got tons of customers. That one is really one that we kind of looked at and see the change in their mind from, I'm not scared, but I'm not sure it's the right time, or I'm not sure what's going to get into. Look, let's try, let's see what happens. Let's just give it a chance to great people and see if they're a good fit for us.
Terrific. So if you succeed and like you're a company that starts hiring borders in a borderless way, like pretty soon, say you hire your first 50 or 80 people, suddenly you've got like people, flung all around the world. And maybe you have like, one person in Poland and two people in Brazil and one person in Spain, so on and so forth. How do you manage the employee experience in that kind of company? And can Deal help?
Yeah, so that's a really hard one. And actually, a lot of the companies I talk to now, 2 years or 3 years into COVID, and people maybe being a bit more, um, happy with the idea of remote working. A lot of the bigger companies now are figuring out like their global policies. Okay, clearly there's talent. How do I make it work? What are the policies? What are the standards? What do I need to have in place for this to scale? What do I need to have in place for my team to have a standardized experience to some extent, so that I'm fair to everybody at the company regardless of their location? And that's a super interesting topic, because as we're kind of scaling ourselves, we're trying to always build the best in class benefits in every single country that we open our entity to, so that you can give it to the employees. And sure, you'll have differences, but what we see is, by building as standard as you can while being top of market, you can build an homogeneous experience. And if you combine that with like strong understanding of local HR and local knowledge, so that you're not only as best practice as you can towards your company, where some companies want to give like additional benefits like child fertility or stuff like that, but you're also best practice towards the country, so that the person feels like towards the other opportunities that they would have locally, they have the best and the right package. So yeah, I mean, we always work on that. It's definitely something we can help on. And there's more than just benefits and packaging, right? There's also the tools that you use to make your team comfortable across time zones and how you set that up. So I could talk about this for hours, but yeah, I think overall it's definitely top of mind. A lot of people are thinking about this idea of not standardizing, but being fair across the board.
Perfect. So it's a great segue into like Deal the company. You guys, I think, just announced that you've crossed 100 million in ARR, which is just remarkable. How fast you've been able to do that. So congratulations, and I think it makes you one of the fastest SaaS growth companies ever, if not the fastest. Um, I'm sure everybody in this room wants to know what's the secret. Like, how have you been able to do this?
Yeah, I don't know about a secret. I think, look, it's a combination of a few things. And I think my co-founder should be on stage with you today. She's definitely a strong representation of what Deal is and what we stand for. But look, I think it's a lot of hard work, combined with a lot of luck and timing, and building something that felt right. We when we came to YC, I had no network in the Bay Area. I didn't know anyone, and I think what you have is two people from very different backgrounds than your usual startup founders so far, that can build something great across the world and across time zones. We raised most of our rounds. I ran most of the rounds from Tel Aviv, right? So I actually never met most of my board members in person as well. So I think, look, it's to be very pragmatic. Is just finding something you believe in, finding something that makes sense for you as a person, right? It makes sense for me. I've never worked in an office before. I've only hired teams distributed. It felt like a problem I could solve, and just a lot of passion, a lot of hard work, and just keep on building. Like I told you, I failed getting into YC twice before, so I've had my fair share of failure.
Resilience, resilience. Yeah, that's great. So the Deal, the company, obviously with this incredible growth in terms of customer base and revenue, the company itself has grown a lot. I think from, just 4 people 2 or 3 years ago to over 400 people today.
Yeah, it's quite interesting because it really depends on the timing of the company. Um, Early on, Shu and I were sitting in an apartment in San Francisco building, right? So like that early time we spent close together was very important for the company. And I don't know how we would have worked out if we would have worked both founders fully separated the whole time. No, I haven't seen her in a while, so it's a bit it scales a bit more later. And I think as a company, I don't really have experience not managing remote teams. Like I've always worked remotely, but I think it's always kind of like the same infrastructure, right? Like care for your team, care for your people, make sure that they have the room to scale, make sure that you're spending the right amount of time with them and giving them their place, making sure that you trust them. That's super important. When you're in a remote environment, um, you're not going to check all day if your team is green on Slack, right? Like you need to trust that they manage their time. You need to be output focused. You need to make sure that they're able to scale themselves and they're able to leverage the flexibility of being able to work from home quite heavily. And I think, one of the things I've recently realized actually, which is quite interesting, is um, as we scale the organization, there's definitely some discussions that are worth having in person. And being able to sit down. So I think my CEO is coming next week for a week. So we're rebuilding some key parts of the organization, and having him with me and with my CFO, is actually going to be super useful because it's such a complex problem to solve at scale, and there's no room for misalignment. Just being able to have the right people in the right room at the right time when it's needed is as crucial as being able to give them the space to build when and to be wherever they want when they're in general building their day to day. It's my new realization is that I need them sometimes with me too.
Right, 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 right. That's fascinating. How many countries do you have employees in today?
um, so we are 850 people now. And I think we're in over 60 plus countries.
Wow, that's amazing. Amazing. Wow.
Remote
Uh,
work, you scale really fast. You can hire a lot of people wherever they are, and actually your burn rate might not be as high as if you had 850 people in San Francisco.
yeah, it almost will certainly not be as high as if you had 850 people. So yeah, that's true. So it's been an amazing journey so far since you started the company. Reflecting back, what are you most proud of? Obviously, there's a long way to go. So, but still, what are you?
Yeah, I mean, we're very, very early. Every time I hop on interviews, people are always asking me, hey, like, where are you guys at? How are you thinking? Look, I don't think we've built 0.001% of what we need to build. There's so many gaps in our infrastructure that I want to get right. There's so much optimization that we can do to have a better and better employee experience, a better client experience. So definitely haven't made anything yet. We're miles behind where I want us to be, and hopefully we're gonna accomplish a lot of this year. So I'm very excited about that. But building this, I would say the most important thing is really the people you surround yourself and how you build your organization. I think I remember you uh, walking me through my organization and making this a big topic for me as we scaled with our Series C. And I don't think I had understood at the time how much it actually meant, or at least what you meant as much as I do today, where your organization evolves. Hiring someone that has done it from 1 to 20 million of ARR is not the same as someone that has done it from 20 to 50 or 50 to 100, right? And being able to surround yourself with the right people at the right time for the organization is super important. And I'm not saying we're doing it right, but at least we're being very thoughtful about who do we have in place at the right time, and do they have the space to get to the next level, and what do they need to get there, and how can we help them reach that, versus maybe is it the right time to bring someone else, right? And potentially helping them scale through better advice, or better like more leadership. So yeah, that's the one thing that I'm very proud of, is looking at the team that we have today and how it has evolved over time. to be able to achieve, going from 1 million in revenue to above $100 million in revenue in like 20 months. It's been one of the things I think we got right, and we need to keep on doing for sure.
Terrific. So can you tell us anything else, that any other projects or products that you're working on that we can get excited about, or new problems you're trying to solve for your customers?
Yeah, I mean, we're trying to solve a bunch of things, which we're very excited about. I mean, we still need to get, double down on our infrastructure right now. I think we went from having a couple of countries like having licenses in over 80 plus countries. So that has been really great to see. And, reaching at least 100 plus by the end of Q2 is definitely one of our goals. Our global payroll product, I'm very excited about that. We already have customers there, and the idea of enabling our customers to go from the contractor model into the employee of record model, where we hire people, all the way to managing their entities in different countries, so that not in their headquarters, but then they can then open whatever they think is right and consolidate that into one, doing something I'm very excited about. And we also have our API coming up, so this is something we've been working on for so long. We've got so many great companies that are already built on top of Deel, and I can't exactly tell you that it's super scalable the way that they've built it without an API so far, but it works because the value we add is worth for them. So, enabling companies, the current companies and all the future companies that we work with to leverage the infrastructure that we've built, the knowledge that we've built, the internal legal teams, the 200 plus legal external lawyers we work with to make Deel work at scale, is very exciting, right? I just wanted to press, call an API and start building on top of Deel.
Yeah, that's a really exciting initiative, the API project. Can you just, to spark the imagination of founders here in the room to maybe build on Deel, can you talk about some of the businesses or types of businesses that this would enable?
Yeah. I mean, the most common one that we've seen without, truly giving any name, because honestly, most of the big marketplaces that way around on Dell is like talent marketplaces, for example. Like that's one I'm super excited about, where, sourcing is a very different skill set than compliance, payroll, payments, invoice, like all of that part. So enabling, a lot of the funders are trying to enable talent in their local regions or in local regions to work for the best companies, and building marketplaces to match the right people, and building those like vetting engine, sourcing engine is something that I'm very, very excited about. And then, well, that one is the one I've been looking for the most. I'm gonna stop at that one for now.
Okay, great. Um, so any parting advice for the founders in the room?
It really depends on what front. Um, what I would say is, when it comes to remote work and scaling a team around the world, a lot of companies come to me and tell me, "Hey, Alex, like, oh, I want to hire remote. Like, how should I start? What should I do?" Especially early stage, it's kind of weird, right? Because it's not it's not that big of a deal. That's what I usually tell a lot of people. It's, look, if you find the right person, and if you think they're the right fit for your company from a culture standpoint, from a work standpoint, from a skill standpoint, just start working with them, right? Give them the opportunity and give them the chance to join your company, and I'm sure that they'll bring a lot of value to you. And just get going. Maybe we can help, or there's other ways to do it as well. But just stop overthinking the idea of, should I go remote or not, when you're a small company. When you're a bigger company, I understand there's a lot more processes in place, and we're here to help and make you think through that and make sure you've got the right structure to scale. But when you're a smaller company, just start building, right? Just focus on shipping, bring the best people you can, the people that are willing to work with you, the people that are willing to build this product, whatever it is, with you. And yeah, that's the one thing that worked out for us, right? Like, the reason why we were able to pull through during YC is we had amazing people that realized that it's a cool opportunity to get to work with us, and it's a cool product that we're building, and they were there throughout those pivots, right? And they were really excited, and that's the beauty of hiring distributedly, right? The fact that people are here usually they're here because they really believe in you, they really believe in where you're going, and you should definitely leverage that.
Terrific. So I think you have this next question. I think you're going to have more insight than maybe anyone anywhere. Um, which country in the world has uh, exceptional talent that people don't realize? Like, in other words, what's the sleeper country from the point of view of like, wow, there's such amazing talent here, but people don't really realize it in the startup world?
Yeah. So we actually just released, I don't know if you saw that one, but we released the data report that summarizes what we see on our side from a data standpoint. But we also have, I also have, I guess, that pragmatic experience of working with some great people from around the world. Look, the country I've been the most impressed with when it comes down to engineering and product talent is Brazil. People there are not only such a great culture fit, right? They're so joyful, they're so excited, they love life, they're excited to build, but they're also very, very talented, right? Like, I think the last, like, I can think like top of mind, like 10 plus people that we have in Brazil that are miles ahead of like most of the people I've ever hired in San Francisco in terms of like how much value they can really bring to the company and to the team. So yeah, Brazil is like the place where I've been so impressed with the people, and yeah, I just love it. It's amazing.
Give us
I mean,
one
there's
more.
tons of others, but Brazil is
Give
the
us
one I
one
love.
more. Give us one more. That was good.
One more. Ukraine is, I mean, that's an obvious one, I think, for a lot of people, but Ukraine is really great, right? If you look at the two, founding engineers of Deel, both of them are in Ukraine. They're still here today. They built, what Deel was, what Deel is, and I'm so proud of them to work with them, and just the raw talent they have and the empathy they are towards users and towards building a company and a team is just so impressive, right? That's why you see great companies like Grammarly coming out of Ukraine. And I expect more and more of it as the next generation of Ukrainian entrepreneurs start building their own companies. Like, I'm looking forward to that. It's yeah, it's super impressive.
Terrific. Great. Well, Alex, this was really fun chatting with you. Thanks for sharing so much about the company and about everything you've learned along the way. And let me just Alex.
But let me ask you a question, since we have a
Yeah.
little bit left.
Yeah.
What has been your perspective on Deel as our board members over the last 2 years and seeing the company grow internationally and helping other companies?
I mean,
I
you
hope
guys.
that's not a curveball. I mean,
No,
it's
no,
fine.
not at all. No, no, no. I'm happy to talk about it. You guys have a value at Deel that you guys call Deel Speed, and yeah, I've just been. One of the most profound things I've ever heard about startups is it's better to be fast than right. I think that quote is attributed to one of the Google founders. Yeah, Deel Speed. Yeah. So it's better to be fast than right. I used to think that was a crazy statement because I used to think it was kind of like it's better to be sick than healthy. Like, how's it ever to what can possibly be better than being right? But actually, the wisdom in the statement is like you can't always be right, but you can always be fast, or at least try to be fast. And the people who are fast, and obviously they try to be right too. But the importance is if you're fast, then you can find your way through the maze by switching back and forth and changing direction and pivoting and learning. Because the faster you go, the faster you learn, and that's really the important thing for a startup. And that's what I've been so impressed with at Deel is how quickly you guys have moved and how much you've learned. And I think the pace of learning and pace of execution has been extraordinary. And I think it puts the company in a really good place going forward. How's that for an answer?
Thank you. Thank you for sharing.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a great answer. Thank you so much.
Awesome. All right. Great to see everyone. Cheers.
Bye bye.